She was home alone with her young children when it all happened. Outside, the night seemed ordinary, but inside, something in her spirit told her that something was about to happen. Suddenly, the sound of screeching tires and male voices shattered the silence of the street. They were armed men, thugs, and they were coming straight for the door of that mother who, not knowing what to do, did the only thing her heart knew. She fell to her knees and began to pray. Have you ever felt cornered? With no way out and no one around to help? That's exactly how she felt in that moment, completely vulnerable. But what happened next cannot be explained by human words alone. It was something that only those who believe in the power of prayer can understand. And even if you've never experienced anything like it, this story will touch your heart in a profound and unforgettable way. As the armed men approached, something invisible, yet very real, began to change the atmosphere. The heavy tension gave way to an eerie silence, as if something or someone had descended in that place. The thugs, who had come with the intention of robbing and perhaps even hurting, stopped. One of them began to cry. Yes, cry. You need to hear what he said. Because it was right at that moment that everything changed. This is not just a story of deliverance. It is a living testament that God listens, and more, that He acts. Even when everything seems lost, even when we are surrounded by evil, there is a power that can envelop us in peace, a power that cannot be explained but transforms. And that mother kneeling there surrounded by threats became a living testimony of this. Stay with me until the end, because what you are about to hear may change the way you perceive prayer, faith, and the power that resides in those who trust wholeheartedly. This story has not been told in newspapers, nor has it gone viral on social media, but today you will learn what God has done and continues to do for those who seek Him. It was a night like any other. The children were fed, toys were scattered across the living room, and the soft sound of worship filled the simple yet love-filled space. That mother, accustomed to battling alone, was finishing up in the kitchen when she felt something different. A tightness in her chest, a strange restlessness, as if the sky were about to open, or perhaps hell was lurking. She didn't know what it was, but she felt that she needed to pray, not fully understanding why. She turned off the lights, locked the door, and knelt in the middle of the living room. Her words were not planned or beautiful. They were tears. They were desperation mixed with faith. They were a cry that only a mother can make when she feels the need to protect her children with more than just her own arms. She didn't ask for riches, she didn't ask for miracles, she only asked for protection, that the Lord would take care of her home, that the angels would position themselves around every wall, and it was at that exact moment that the headlights of a car illuminated the window. Tires squealed on the asphalt. Loud laughter and threatening voices broke the silence of the street. 4 men jumped from the vehicle, armed and determined. This was not a random robbery. They had information. They knew there was a woman alone with small children. They were sure it would be easy, quick, and profitable. But there was one thing they didn't know. That house was surrounded by prayer. As the footsteps approached the door inside the house, the mother remained kneeling. She didn't scream, didn't run, didn't panic. She stood firm, praying, as if she knew that the battle being fought was not just against men, but against invisible forces. Outside, the thugs exchanged glances. Something felt wrong. One of them hesitated. The leader ordered him to open the gate. But as he placed his hand on the lock, he recoiled as if he had been shocked. It was the beginning of something they never expected to see. The first man, the youngest among them, stepped back. He tried to mask his fright with a cynical smile, but his hand trembled. "Something is wrong here," he said. The leader, irritated, pushed the gate open and advanced. The others followed, with their weapons drawn, but the closer they got to the house, the more unbearable the silence became. There were no screams, no movement, just a heavy stillness, as if something invisible were watching them. One of them, who wore a chain around his neck, suddenly stopped and looked up at the sky. His eyes widened. Inside the house, the mother continued praying. Her words now had strength. It was not just fear that moved her, but conviction. She knew God was there. She felt as if the Holy Spirit himself were standing beside her, between her and the door. The children, not understanding what was happening, were behind her, holding each other but curiously calm. It was as if they were being kept in a place where fear could not enter, an invisible refuge. It was then that something extraordinary happened. The man who had looked up at the sky fell to his knees on the pavement. He began to cry, covering his face with his hands. The others, confused, started to back away. The leader tried to raise his voice, but his throat seized up. He couldn't speak. Something was holding him back. The pressure in the air grew intense. The atmosphere seemed to carry a spiritual weight they could not explain. There were no shouts, no human action. It was as if the very heavens had descended upon that forgotten street. "She's praying," one of them murmured. "The woman is praying." And that was enough for all four of them to run back to the car. But what no one saw was what that kneeling man saw. He later recounted that when he looked at the house, he saw shining figures standing before the door. Men of light, armed with flaming swords, staring down each of the intruders. He knew it wasn't just in his head. It was too real. And he, who had never believed in anything before, realized in that instant, God was real, and he was there. As soon as the thugs fled, the mother, still kneeling, slowly raised her head. The children were silent, but their little eyes shone with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The atmosphere in the house was charged, and she felt that the battle was not yet over. What had happened? Why had those men backed down? As her mind tried to process the situation, her heart already knew the answer. Prayer had been the shield that protected her. Outside, the men were in shock. The young one, who had been laughing and full of bravado, was now trembling. "What was that?" he asked, his voice choked. The others were silent, but the tension among them was palpable. The leader, trying to regain authority, gestured for everyone to get in the car. But the young man's eyes were filled with tears. I saw. There were men of light. They were there. God was there." He spoke almost in a whisper, but the fervent conviction in his voice was undeniable. Those words cut through the air like a sharp knife. The leader became restless, glancing at the others. "Shut up! There is no God." But even he began to doubt. The images the young man described were imprinted in his mind. He had grown up, hearing stories about God, but had always dismissed them as fables. Now everything seemed different. The idea that something supernatural had occurred shook his deepest convictions. A doubt arose, a crack in his arrogance that began to crumble. Inside the house, the mother noticed the commotion outside. The thugs were lost in their own confusion. Maybe they need help, she thought, but her mind warned her of the danger. Fear mingled with compassion. She decided that her prayer should not stop. She began to cry out for those men. "Lord, touch their hearts. May they know your love." With each word, she felt stronger, more alive. She understood that this moment was more than just a simple defense. It was a powerful testimony of what God can do in people's lives, and that even the most lost can find the light. The thugs were agitated, not knowing what to do. The leader finally ordered everyone to get in the car, but the young man remained standing, staring at the house. He felt that something had changed within him. "I can't leave like this. We need to do something." The words came out of his mouth like a desperate shout. The others looked at him perplexed. It was as if he were waking up from a dream and at the same time entering a new reality. "We were the ones who threatened that woman. We need to apologize. We need to tell her what we saw." The leader was about to protest, but the young man's words silenced him. He knew that what they were doing was wrong, not just morally, but spiritually. For a moment, all four were silent, staring at the house. The young man took a step forward while the others hesitated. "I'm going in," he declared firmly. "If she is really praying for us, maybe there is still hope for us." So with his heart racing, he approached the door of the house. Meanwhile, inside, the mother continued to pray, unaware that her enemies were before her. Then he knocked on the door. The mother looked, surprised to see one of the men. The tension filled the air, but something in his gaze was different. There was a mix of remorse and vulnerability. She hesitated, but the same conviction that had moved her to pray now moved her to open the door. As soon as the door opened, the young man began to speak, his words rushing out, filled with emotion. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything we did. We saw something. There were men of light. And I can't explain it, but I feel like we need to change." The mother, in shock, felt a wave of compassion for that man. "God can forgive you. God can change your life," she said, her voice full of love. "He is already here, waiting for you." The other three bandits, who had been reluctant, ended up joining him. They were tired of the life of crime, of the shadows that haunted them. One by one, they all confessed their wrongdoings, and the mother, with tears in her eyes, welcomed them. She prayed with them, not only asking for forgiveness but also offering hope. What happened in that house was a true miracle. Not only were the lives of that mother and her children protected, but the lives of 4 men were transformed forever. That night, the house that had been surrounded by fear became a sanctuary of hope and redemption. The bandits were no longer bandits. They became witnesses to the power of God, ready to rewrite their stories. And the mother, who prayed on her knees, now knew that her prayers had not only changed her reality, but also impacted lives she never imagined. Faith and prayer amidst chaos had revealed a light that would be taken into the world, showing that even in the darkest nights, God is able to turn pain into hope. In the story we have just witnessed, we saw how a simple prayer can be an act of courage and hope in the midst of despair. That mother, kneeling on the floor of her living room, did not know that her cry would touch not only the heart of God but also change the lives of men who, at first glance, seemed irredeemable. Faith, when activated, becomes a powerful force that can break chains and transform lives even in the darkest circumstances. The reality that in an instant everything can change is a reminder that prayer is more than words. It is a living dialogue with the Creator. And so we realize that it is not just the bandits who need redemption. Each of us at some point in life finds ourselves lost or surrounded by challenges that seem insurmountable. The story of that mother is a call to action for all of us. At any moment we can kneel and ask for help, no matter how desperate the situation may seem. The power of transformation is available to those who sincerely seek it. Change begins in our hearts, and when we allow the light to enter, we can reflect that light in the world around us. The lives of the 4 men changed not only because they turned away from crime, but because they found a greater purpose. They became living witnesses to the love and mercy of God. Sometimes the greatest testimony is not shared from the pulpits but in the streets, where people most need to hear about redemption. This leads us to reflect. How many people around us are waiting to see an example of genuine love? Each of us has the capacity to be that light, to make a difference in the life of someone who needs hope. At the end of this story, we are left with a question. In what areas of your life do you need to cry out for change? It may be a family challenge, a personal struggle, or even a doubt about your faith. The important thing is to remember that prayer is a powerful means of connection and transformation. You are not alone on this journey. May your faith be your guide, just as it was for that mother on her night of terror. The power of prayer knows no limits, and transformation can begin in you. If you were touched by this story and wish to see more content that inspires and challenges your faith, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Like this video and share your own experiences of faith and transformation in the comments. We want to hear from you. Together, let us continue to spread the message of hope and love, always remembering that even in the most difficult situations, prayer is the key that opens the doors to redemption.